Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Up. So today we're going to be doing another team preview and we're looking at the St. Louis Blues. Now we're going to be doing this in the style of the other team previews, so if you haven't watched those videos already, I suggest you do so. And we're going to hop right into it. Now we're going to start with what St. Louis added. Now, St. Louis did get one of the biggest splashes in free agency with Torrey Krug. They signed him to a 7-year, $6.5 million a year deal, and I think it's honestly a solid deal for what Krug provides. He's a good offensive defenseman, a great power play quarterback, doesn't provide much on the defensive side of the game, but when you've got a guy like Colton Parayko probably going to play alongside him, that is going to make for a very good pairing in St. Louis. So I do like that signing for St. Louis. It's a good move. They also signed Kyle Clifford to a short-term, low AAV deal. Clifford is a good grit guy. You know, you can never have too many of them. Decent fourth liner, not much more than that at this point. Yeah, so they didn't add way too much outside of Krug, just added Krug and kind of were like, yeah, that's okay. And I do think Krug is a good add and will help recoup some of their losses. Now, I do think that St. Louis really lost in free agency because they did lose their captain, their star defenseman, Alex Pietrangelo. Pietrangelo ended up signing with the Vegas Golden Knights, and that did leave a big hole in their lineup. Thankfully, I do think signing Krug is going to help replace that, and Colton Parayko stepping up. I think Parayko's fantastic, and he's underrated. So Krug and Parayko is going to make for a great pairing, but is that going to be able to recuperate from what Pietrangelo brought, that leadership and everything? I don't know. Pietrangelo is a huge loss, and it's one that St. Louis fans are definitely going to feel. Pietrangelo was a great St. Louis Blue. His number could potentially be retired for them one day, but it's a shame he's not going to be playing for them anymore. Now, they also lost some depth guys in Troy Brouwer and Derek Pouliot. Not really big losses, just fourth liners, 7 defensemen, no biggie. But they did trade away their backup goaltender, Jake Allen. Now, Jake Allen has been a very solid goaltender and at some points a starter for a very long time. He was quite good a couple seasons ago for St. Louis, and this season, as a backup, he was one of, if not the best backup in the league, maybe behind Anton Hudobin. Jake Allen is a very good goalie. I know as a Montreal fan, I'm really excited to have him on my team. So it definitely does hurt their tandem. I get why St. Louis traded him, since his cap hit for a backup was pretty large, and at the time, I think when they traded him away, they did have in mind trying to keep Pietrangelo. But obviously Allen is not a part of the St. Louis Blues anymore, so they are going to rely on Binnington. He's their guy, but Allen has been a very good Blue for a long time, and I'm sure he's another loss that fans are kind of disappointed about. But going into their top 6, now St. Louis actually has a very good top 6. The top line of Perron, then probably O'Reilly, and Tarasenko is very good. That's if Tarasenko is healthy, though. And then on the second line, you've probably got Jaden Schwartz, Braden Shen, and maybe Zach Sanford on that right wing. There's also Robert Thomas in there, and Thomas is a very good young player with a lot of potential. I do expect a big year out of him, actually, and I think he is going to be a key piece for St. Louis going forward. Maybe in 4 or 5 years could end up being their best player. I'm really big on Robert Thomas. But my question with the top 6 is whether or not Vladimir Tarasenko is going to be able to play, but we're going to get into that later. Their top 6 overall is really good. No big name offensive star power aside. I don't think Tarasenko is necessarily, if he comes back, is going to be 40, 50 goal scorer. I think he's just a solid 30 goal guy at this point. He's kind of regressed due to injury. Ryan O'Reilly is a good player, but obviously a two-way forward, so you're not going to get a boatload of offense from him. But overall, the top 6 is quite well-rounded and pretty solid. Now, I really like St. Louis's top 4. Even with losing Pietrangelo, I still think they have one of the better top 4s in the league. They've got Krug, Parayko, Dunn, and Falk. Now, to me, Falk might be the weak one there. He's kind of hasn't fit in very well in St. Louis, and they're going to hope he has a big year. They did acquire him a year ago in mind with him hopefully being a bit of a replacement for Pietrangelo if he'd left, and now that Pietrangelo is gone, they're going to need Falk to step up. Vince Dunn is super underrated, and hopefully they're going to be able to get him under contract. Dunn should be in a top 4 role, and he should be quite fantastic. That top pairing of Parayko and Krug should mesh together very well, and I could see them having a lot of chemistry and forming one of the better defensive pairings in the NHL. Their top 4 is really good. Even with losing Alex Pietrangelo, it's still one of the best in the league. But going on to their goaltending, now their goaltending to me is a big question. I imagine that Vinny Husso is probably going to be the backup, and that would clearly leave Jordan Binnington as the starter. But I have questions on whether or not Jordan Binnington is going to be able to replicate what he's done. Binnington did not look good at all against Vancouver, and I understand that a lot of the team was affected by COVID, that their energy levels was low, and maybe Binnington was one of the players affected by that. But Binnington really just didn't look like himself. He was actually pretty good in the regular season, and clearly he was amazing in the 2019 playoffs, leading St. Louis to the Stanley Cup. So I do think Binnington is still a very good goalie, but a part of me wonders if he's another Cam Ward type. Comes in, has a great year, and then he's just a solid goalie after. I don't think Binnington is going to, flop and be terrible or anything, but I don't necessarily know if he's going to be a true top 10 goalie in the league. I think he might just end up being a decent starter, puts up, all right numbers, but isn't necessarily going to replicate that form that he had a couple of years ago. So Binnington, to me, and their goaltending in general, is a bit of a question. But as far as their best players go, now their best players are Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko, Braden Shen, Colton Parayko, and probably Torrey Krug. Now I do think they have a very good mix of depth and talent in St. Louis. Very solid all-around players. They play a very good two-way game for the most part. So I really think that their top players are quite good. For a former Stanley Cup champion, they don't necessarily have that true franchise superstar power, but they're just a very solid team from top to bottom, and that's why it was kind of difficult to pick their top 5 best players, because there were so many options. I had to leave a guy like Jordan Binnington or Jaden Schwartz off the list. But those are probably the 5 guys I would go with, and it could change next year. Maybe Vince Dunn comes in and he looks like a star. So who knows with St. Louis. I think it'd be easier to do a top 10 best players for them than top 5, but keeping with the tradition of doing these videos, I had to just keep it top 5. But going on to players that I think I should talk about, I do want to start with Vince Dunn, actually. Now, Vince Dunn is fantastic. He's one of the most underrated defensemen in the NHL, but my question is, I wonder if they're going to be able to get him signed before the start of the year. He is a restricted free agent right now, and I would imagine that he's probably demanding a bit of money. Not a massive contract, but at least around $3 or $4 million, I would assume. And St. Louis simply doesn't have the cap space right now. Maybe they put a guy like Alex Steen on the long-term injured reserve. There has been rumors about that. But I really think St. Louis needs to get Dunn re-signed. He's one of the future pieces there. He's already been very good in his time already. And if he can play up to the level we all expect, he should help replace that loss of Pietrangelo. If they can't get Dunn re-signed, they're gonna have to rely on a guy like Marco Scandella to play a top 4 role. And I don't know how I feel about that. The defensive depth in St. Louis has definitely taken a hit, and if they can't get Dunn re-signed, then that's going to be a big problem. But another player I want to talk about is Vladimir Tarasenko. Now, Tarasenko, when he plays, is a very good goal scorer and all-around offensive forward. But the question is, his injury history. He's had so many major surgeries and just can't seem to stay healthy. A part of me wonders if we're ever going to see Tarasenko play in the NHL again for full time. He just constantly seems to be getting injured, and he's one of those Stamkos-like players that every little bump he takes, you wonder, did that tear something? Did that pull something? If Tarasenko isn't able to rebound to his previous form, then that is going to be a problem for St. Louis. Even if he can just be a consistent 30-goal scorer for them, I think that's all right. But I do think that his play is going to be dramatically affected by his injuries, and who knows if he's going to play at all. But I want to talk about Colton Parayko. Now, Colton Parayko is one of the most underrated defensemen in the NHL. He's a throwback defenseman, a pure defensive defenseman. There is a bit of offensive upside there, and he's got a very hard shot. He actually reminds me a lot of a young Shea Weber, and if Parayko can really come into his own this year, he's probably going to get a lot of recognition, since I think he is generally considered to be the number 1 D-man there in St. Louis, now that Pietrangelo is left. Pietrangelo only has a couple years left, Parayko, only has a couple years left on his contract, so if he does end up having a big year, St. Louis is going to need to make sure that they can lock him up long-term as well. Parayko's fantastic, and they need to be able to find a way to keep him. As far as the category goes, I would have St. Louis as a contender. I don't think that they're necessarily a cup favorite anymore. After last year getting beat out in the first round and now losing Pietrangelo, with questions surrounding Binnington and Tarasenko, I don't think that they're necessarily a cup favorite, but they're definitely still a contender. I fully believe that they'll still be able to make the playoffs and maybe make it to the second or third round, but I can't see them winning another Stanley Cup again. They're probably a one-and-done team, and there's no shame in that. Even just getting one Stanley Cup is incredible. It's such a hard trophy to win, and St. Louis fans should still be proud of their team if this is truly it for them. I still think that they're going to be a solid team for years to come, but their days of being a true Stanley Cup favorite might be over for now. Maybe Parayko can become an elite defenseman, and maybe Dunn as well, and I might look like a fool, and St. Louis might get another Stanley Cup, but for right now, I just don't see them being a favorite. They're definitely a contender. They are still one of the better teams in the NHL, but not a favorite in my opinion. But that does it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching till the end. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.